I'm Wyatt.
And I'm Grace.
And you're listening to our dad and your host of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Moore, and I'm real excited about our episode today. We've got one of our longtime Vodacy members inside of our Empire Club, and we've got Suzie Austin joining us. And Susie's going to be talking to us about her journey into vacation rental investing, but also becoming one of the top agents who works with, she's one of our top recommended partners inside of our mastermind group, works with a lot of investors, helping them on as their boots on the ground expert in the market that she's in right now. So Suzie, thanks so much for joining us. I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Hey, thanks so much, Shawn. I'm so glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, we're happy to have you. And so let's we're missing Steve today. Steve wasn't, but you got to tell me about yours and Steve's journey first into kind of vacation rental investing game, and then what how that journey looked, how you guys got started, what got you interested, and then we're going to really kind of shift gears and talk a little bit about you becoming really the recommended expert and boots on the ground person that you're really one of the top vacation rental agents in the country, probably in your local market too.
So my journey began, I'm a real estate agent on the Texas Gulf Coast, and started specializing in the coast and was selling a lot of short-term rentals. And I remember turning to my husband and saying, why are we not doing this? This is so much fun. I'm watching clients, enjoy this fabulous journey of investing. We need to do this. And so we made a decision as a couple that if we're going to do this, let's take it to the highest level. Let's go top of market. Let's find an expert who can pave the way, so to speak. And that's when we found you. And so we joined Vodacy. We went through the trainings together. I found a property that I really wanted, that I was excited about. But of course, we wanted to be in agreement. We wanted to get an expert's advice. And so we wanted you to come in and take a look at it. And you did. And we went forward with that. We renovated that property. And it's now one of the top properties on the west end of Galveston. So we're real excited. We just love that property. And we're looking to buy our second property.
Nice. And when was that?
That was 2021.
Yep.
We joined Vodacy in 2021. We bought our property in 2021, renovated it for about 4 or 5 months, and then went live in 2022.
Nice. And we'll, just so everybody's always listening, if you're a new listener and you've listened to these types of interviews and some of our members that have these portfolios of properties, and we always post their properties because I always believe success leaves clues, and you guys do have a really stunning property in Galveston. And so it's it's a great property. Go look at it. You guys can check it out. Go stay in it if you're looking to get away and have a little beach vacation. But, and Suzie, you obviously had real estate background, right? You've been a top producing agent in the greater Houston area for quite some time.
Yes. So I've been in real estate for over 10 years. My mom was a real estate agent. And actually we owned a vacation property on the coast when I was growing up. So both Houston and Galveston are, very familiar territory to me. And of course, my mom was an agent. She was a top agent, did very well. So I learned from her a lot. And now my daughters are both getting their licenses and coming along, following suit. So that's fun. But when I decided where we were going to buy, it was really not hard because Galveston, our market is just fabulous. And I see my clients are doing very well, and it's in our backyard. So it was a natural fit.
Yeah, that's awesome. Talk to me a little bit about, because you were, really an expert when it comes to real estate and been in the game for a long time, grew up with it. So, you had your mom as a mentor, you dove into the game, yet you still found us and wanted to raise the bar with this specific asset class. It's an interesting, when I talk to a lot of people, we talked to a lot of people across the country, and I find that somebody who is a past investor, or a lot of agents, realtors, management companies, and they've been in different asset classes, residential, long-term rentals, multifamily, they don't realize that this is a completely different asset class, and there is a learning curve when it comes to this. And I see people like you, and you're a great example of being able to set the ego aside a little bit and say, hey, if we're going to do this, when you and Steve had that conversation, say, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this at the top, right? And if we're going to do this at the top, we have to learn what we don't know. We've got to kind of we've got a great foundation. We got a very good understanding, a better understanding of real estate than a lot of people out there. However, you were able to set your ego aside enough to say, I still want to learn more about it. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because that when we talk to a lot of people, and like I said, when I mentor a lot of people and coach and speak, you guys are a minority when it comes to being able to say, yes, I can still learn more, versus the greater group of investors, realtors, management partners that say, oh, I've already got this figured out because I know real estate.
Well, we don't know what we don't know. And when buyers come in to buy short-term rentals, they're not buying a home for them to live in.
Yeah.
They're buying a business. They're buying something that they have to appeal to a mass amount of people. And my saying is, it takes so little to be above average, but it takes you being intentional to be top of market.
Absolutely.
And that's what the Vodacy model really helps with, is you being intentional to be top of market. Because I don't think it's an accident that we became top of market, is because we were intentional. We could have been average or above average, but we really wanted to be the place to go in the West End for our type of condo. And it really does take a framework of, like you said, success leaves clues. You need to know the things that you don't know. Right. Someone else, the experts have paved the way for us. And that's really what you excel in, is delivering that fairy tale for people, because people can come in and say, okay, I want a house. You're not buying just a house. You're not buying something for you to live in. It can't even really just be your taste. It needs to be for the masses. It needs to be for the highest and best use in your market. And every market is different. If you're coming to me and you say, I want to buy a condo in the medical center in Houston, that's a totally different renter than the Gulf Coast in Galveston. Yeah. So, you need to have your goals laid out pretty clearly as you're coming in as a buyer. And then once you have your goals set and we find you a property, then you go into, how can I make this the highest and best, the top of the market, wherever it is. And that takes really researching your market, researching the competition, and going through those modules with you, making sure that that property can get there.
Yeah, that's great. And before we hit record, you and I were talking, and you mentioned one of the most important things that you think every investor needs to have right before they even make any decision is having those goals laid out, really understanding what their property goals are, what they're trying to do. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. And also, as far as your goals are, it's what you're willing to invest time and money wise after closing. Yep. I have buyers who will come to me and say, I don't have time. I need it ready to go. That's fine. You have your goals set. That's great. That helps me find the right property for you. But then you have people that say, I do have time and I have extra money after closing. I'm willing to invest that time and money. So that's a different property. We go in and we think, how can we maximize this house? Yes. How can we change a hall closet and put bunk beds in there? Or these giant master closets and maybe capture that space in another room, then we can think maximizing a property, that's one thing I like to do, because before I was a real estate agent, I was an interior designer. So I always walk into properties thinking, how can we make this better? What can we do to maximize this? And how can we edge out the neighbors? And sometimes we go into a property right there in that house and we look at the Airbnbs and Verbos right nearby. And let's compare, how can we distinguish ourselves when we're in the house? What can we do to make this house, this property really exceed expectations and get booked?
Yeah, and I think that this is a key point of why you become really frankly, our number one recommended partner when it's, and you're in a market, you're a large market, Galveston, the Gulf Coast of Texas, that's a large vacation home market, but you're our number one recommended partner on boots on the ground realtors in the, across the nation. Is because you take that front end time to really understand. And we're so intentional with our mastermind mentorship group of saying this is why all of our portfolios look very different, even though we're following the same process. All of our resources, time, money, knowledge, it starts a little bit different, right? And what we're really trying to do on the back end, managing your properties, not managing your own properties based on your time available on the back end, money available. It's like, okay, I have enough for my down payment. I don't have a lot to get it from, so that buyer's really looking for a very turnkey type of a property, right? We need to figure it out. But also, you also understand that to maximize these properties, it's very, very crowded in the middle of the market, right? And it doesn't take a whole lot extra to raise the bar. But you have to be very intentional about that. You mentioned that before. And I love that you have those conversations with, our Vodacy family and the buyers that you work with to be able to say, okay, listen, because I've gone through this process myself, I very much understand you as an investor because I've done this. I'm not just, out here as an agent. You and Steve own a property and it's operating at the top of the market for your property type in the area you're in. And you're able to have those conversations because you've gone through, like you said, most people don't know what they don't know. And a lot of us want to just skip forward to the markets and looking at properties. And they don't because they just want to look at everything available and say, okay, let's just try to find the best one. Well, the best one, if you and I are both looking at houses together, the best one for me might not be the best one for you. And I think that's what a lot of buyers don't understand in the very beginning.
And I'll give you an example of knowing what you want ahead of time, because even just calling the right agent in the right market is critical. I had a client who called me, and she was a young woman. They didn't have children. And she wanted a property on the coast. And I started showing her properties, but she wasn't sure what her goals were, which is okay. Sometimes we flesh that out, and that's fine. But come to find out, she really wanted a property for couples only. And I'm showing her beach properties. And she said, I just really think I want couples only. Now, if you want a couples only property, the beach is not your place because you're going to be missing out. If you set up a property for couples, book club, whatever, you're missing out if you don't have bunk beds. You have to think highest and best in that market. If you're buying a condo next to the medical center in Houston, you don't need bunk beds. So, it's a different type of gold and a different type of property. So you need to be clear up front with what you're looking for and make sure what you're looking for is in the market that you're calling, and the agent can help you with that. And turns out that she wasn't a buyer for us, and that's fine. We want to help everybody find their sweet spot. And if this isn't it, if the coast isn't it, then, you need to keep looking because your goals have to line up with the market is, I guess.
Absolutely. And we're not guessing on that, right? There's data that shows us that there are some markets that have a lot of crossover, that you can be family oriented, you can be couples getaway, you can be adults only. And there's a lot of crossover. There's other markets that you're going to struggle if you don't pick the guest avatar that is really frequenting that area on a regular basis. And so we have to a lot of times some of that data is available, right? When it comes to size of properties and everything else, but the data is not available to say couples work here, adults work here, families work here. That is when the boots on the ground experts come into play, because there's certain things that data is not it's just not reliable on, right? And so that's why we're so big on making sure that you've got an agent in the area. Your boots on the ground team has got to really understand what you're doing in this space with this asset class, because a lot of agents will just say, oh no, that'll be great, that'll work. But that market intimately, just like every area. I tell people there's a street or there's an area that I don't want to be on the wrong side of the tracks, kind of that old saying, right? And usually there's these dividing geographic areas within a certain market that the good agents are going to know, hey, you don't want to be over there. It's not going to bring the same revenue that somewhere, even though on paper it looks like you're a block away, which you are. There's a big divider there between the night, the rates you're going to charge, the attractiveness to the guest, all those different things. Those aren't things that are easily figured out when it just comes to data tools. And that's where I think a lot of buyers going it alone struggle.
Right. And also, your real estate agent is your resource to the region.
Yes.
And most of my clients are from all over the country.
Yeah.
And so, what we do is we're here to be your boots on the ground in our market. And I am very honest with my clients. And that's what you want in an agent. You don't want someone that's just there to sell you a home. I want happy clients. I want them to make money. This is a business that you're buying. This is not real estate. This is a business. So I look at it like that. I want them happy, and then next year coming back and buying more real estate. So, but there are things like you want to ask your real estate agent, are there great property managers? Are there great cleaners? Because we have sold in a lake. For example, our MLS is huge. So we've got Houston, Galveston. We have lakes north of Houston. I've sold in the lakes north of Houston. There are not property managers that I would recommend there. Mm-hmm. So of course, when clients call me and they say, well, I want to look at the lakes up there, some of the questions to ask are there resources in these rural areas? There could be great lakes, great, farm and ranch area, but can I recommend a really reliable property manager to you, or clean teams that I know will be reliable? These are very practical, but very important questions, because people have come to me and said, I want a farm and ranch property, or I want a property up at this lake. And I say, I would love to sell you that property. And they're great properties. But when it comes to management and it comes to clean team, there are challenges there. So these are questions you want to make sure that you flesh out with your real estate agent, that you get practical with them and tell them, even if you're managing it yourself, the clean team, you've got to have good boots on the ground. And some areas are just more rural and not as reliable. Right. So that's another question to ask.
And that's not, again, that's why you have those local experts and those regional experts, like you said. That's how you choose as an investor. And I wanted to this is what I wanted to talk about. When I was an investor, right? I've been investing full time for 23 years outside of a 3-year span where I had to pay my bills by selling real estate as a realtor, right? And so I had lost everything, and I didn't have any more money to invest. I was starting back up. I happened to have a real estate license, but because I knew what investors wanted, because I was an investor for so long, I was able to go become one of the top agents in our market in Northern Utah. I mean, we were nominated for the large sales team of the year, the second year in business, and in a major market, but I specifically understood investors, right? Yes. I understood exactly what they were looking for, and I could answer a lot of those questions for them. I wasn't just taking them properties off the MLS and sending them to them. I mean, I knew when something underwrote. I understood what they needed, and they become these repeat customers, right? Ultimately, I was really working with about 10 clients over and over and over again. I wasn't having to go find something. And I think that what you're doing now as well is really becoming an expert in this asset class in your region and becoming this phenomenal resource, and it's not just a one and done, because an investor comes back. You find them a really great asset that performs well. Well, guess what? When that asset's doing really well, we want to continue to stack on that portfolio.
That's right.
And so I think that's, I love having this conversation, because I've actually been speaking at a lot of, the real estate market has shifted, right? There's a lot of shifting going around, with interest rates going up like crazy, inventory really, really low. There's a lot of really good agents out there that are like, man, I'm kind of struggling, but they're not taking that next step to figure out how to become a resource outside of just, showing properties on an MLS, right? And
to those agents, I would say, do your homework, get ready for investors. Don't be scrambling when they call. When I started doing this, I sold a few down there, and then I started interviewing all the property managers on the island of Galveston, because I wanted to know who I could recommend. I don't recommend them unless I know they are going to be quality folks, unless they're going to deliver. And so I interviewed all the property managers on the island. I have a resource list of maids. Now I know if you get a property manager, they're going to have resources for you, but I want to also have a repertoire of resources for any needs that my client has. And I think any agent that is really, skilled in this area with short-term rentals is going to have that for you. But agents need to think like an investor, learn the game, understand the numbers. we aren't responsible for what they buy. And what I say is, after we close, I will find you a great property, but I don't guarantee results. We look and we study and we do our research and our homework. There are hundreds of decisions that buyer is going to make from the moment we close, from design to, theme, to who they choose for property management, to clean teams, to their style of managing it, from afar or up close. So many decisions. So this is the beginning. We want to give them a really great beginning. Find an amazing property that we can believe will do very well, as long as they make those other 100 decisions after closing that they have to. And that's where you come in. Your program really helps to lay the foundation of what works to be top of the market. And that's what people want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you just hit on a really critical point too in the beginning of that, was don't start trying to figure out a specific asset class or what an investor is looking for once they ask or call about it. And there's just, that learning curve is too large. You have to have a foundational base of knowledge. When you got really serious about this game, you invested in your education. You and Steve went out and invested in a property yourself. You are an investor in this space, but you also invested significantly with us to be able to understand how to operate at the top of the market, all those different things way before you became this, this mega agent down there and really becoming the recommended partner in our group specifically. But I know, even outside of that, in your area down in the Gulf Coast of Texas, if I could speak clearly. But it was because you were proactive before, you're thinking, you're long-term thinking. You're saying, okay, I'm going to build this arm of my business.
Right.
And you started doing that in 2021. It's 2023 now. And now look what it has done, where most people are so short-term thinking and they're saying, okay, I'll deal with it when I need to. And that day never comes where they actually build that arm of the business.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think whatever you are desiring to get into, you need to research ahead of time before you get into it. Right. I mean, that's,
absolutely.
We want to prepare for success, and, success very rarely comes fly by the seat of your pants. You usually get ready for it. I think there's a preparation time. And I think that if you're going to be a top of the market in any field, preparation is always going to help you excel.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you're not there to underwrite the deals for your clients and everything else. That's their job, right? I always say that. I've never let anybody else underwrite my own deals. I'm writing the check, right? And there's a risk involved in everything. Underwriting is never perfect, but we can get really good at it. You should understand what they're going to be looking for. You should understand what underwriting looks like, but your job is not to go out and say, okay, here's this property and here's how much you're going to make on it. You can't do that legally. I mean, you lose your license. You can't guarantee any sort of results, and you shouldn't even suggest results. Frankly, a lot of times outside of, hey, here's what I'm thinking. What are you guys seeing in the market? And it's fine. I get the opinions of my dream team all the time, but I let them know, hey, I'm curious in your opinion. I know that I'm going to still underwrite my own deal, but then becoming that resource, because you're exactly right. What you're doing is on the front end, and you can still send them some, resources and, different partners in that local area that they need, boots on the ground, everything else. But you also want to make sure that they understand this is a long-term investment and make sure that they feel like that, okay, you can, I'm sure, Susie, when you're talking to a buyer, the buyers that are like, okay, I've kind of got a long-term plan. I'm following a process. I'm following a program. I'm doing this, and I'm going to have this after I buy the property. Again, to your point, there's going to be hundreds of decisions after they buy, let alone before when they're working with you, because a lot of times after they buy, then not that you're just going away, but your job is really kind of done until they're ready to do another one outside of helping them with some resources, but they need to make a lot of other decisions. And you've got that buyer that's really well planned out, understands the game, you're like, okay, I think they're going to do well and succeed. You've got the other buyer that's not thinking that long-term. They're thinking, as soon as I buy the property, all I've got to do is throw it in Airbnb and everything's going to take care of itself. And that's not the case in this market. And it's really nice because to be able to let them know, hey, listen, here's my experience with this, so that they don't, you want people walking into anything with their eyes wide open, right? It's not necessarily your job to solve that entire problem. But it is really nice to be able to recognize and be able to be that trusted advisor that says, hey, Shawn, I want to make sure that you're thinking about this, this, and this, because this is going to come up right after you own the property. And then you're going to have to have certain things in place long-term. As an investor, you understand that. And so you can share that with them, right? And they can make some of those decisions, because this is a long-term decision. And I love that an experienced agent that really understands the asset class itself is able to give that best advice so that somebody doesn't walk into a buzzsaw right after they buy a property and they thought, oh, this isn't what I thought I was walking into.
Right. And there's so many aspects of short-term rentals, and this is why I love having, Vodacy, but, we have Mike Pine. there are so many aspects to investing that you want to be sure as a real estate agent that I am not a CPA. I don't pretend to be one on TV. This is who you need to call. We have great people who can help you, but this is bigger than buying a property to live in. This is a business. And so you need to treat it like a business. You need to do your homework. And we look at, all the factors that go into making this investment decision. And then once you make the decision, even more decisions are being made after that. So you have, but having resources that can help with all of the decisions that come about with it is critical. I mean, it's critical. Yeah.
Well, ultimately our goal is to have people walk into this with their eyes wide open, succeed, have success, continue to build that lifestyle, financial freedom that we're all after. And as you've kind of gone through this process, both personally, but also helping a lot of other people get into the game, what are some of the, outside of, we talked about one of the biggest pieces of advice is to really understand your property goals, what you're really trying to do as you build this asset. What are your resources look like, time, money, knowledge, knowing that that's the number one place that people need to start. What are some of the other things that you wish you would have known as you were diving into it, or that you see that is a common mistake that other people are making when they're really diving into the game, that maybe there's some piece of advice that seem to be kind of repetitive for you, that you're like, okay, I always need to start here, because it seems like that a lot of people are missing this?
Well, I think of a couple of things. I mean, one would be a fear of pulling the trigger and buying the property. Some people start out gung ho, we start to look, and then the fear sets in. What if? And, for me, my job is to help you find the property and really allay some of those fears. But ultimately, as a buyer, as an investor, you're going to have to make the decision. And, paralysis analysis is basically it. You can get stuck thinking of what if, so much going on in the world. I've had clients tell me, with the world climate, well, the right mindset for an investor should be, we look for opportunities with this climate. This, everything happening in the world, everything happening around us, there are so many opportunities for us. So we have to look for those opportunities right now. If we don't, someone else will. So no matter what the interest rates are, no matter what's going on in the geopolitical climate, where are my opportunities as an investor? And let's dive in and let's find them and capitalize on them and make the decision to say yes, and just take the leap. You have to take the leap, or you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to make any progress with your goals.
Yeah, love it. And it is about taking action. There is never going to be every single box checked off before you make decisions. And that's one of the number one things that I've always focused on and learned a long time ago was, and I think the first time I heard it was from Ed Milet, and he always says, that the amount of information that successful people need before they make a decision is actually less than what average people need to have before they make a decision. And that's absolutely true. They're like, okay, I need about 75-80% of the information, and I'm comfortable moving forward, where you are never going to have 100%. And that average person is like, okay, I'm trying to get to 100, and they never make a decision. They never move forward. They don't make a lot of mistakes. That is their biggest mistake, is they sit on the sideline and don't do anything. But it doesn't feel like they ever make any mistakes. They don't ever have any gains either. And it seems like they're always kind of sliding backwards because they don't make decisions and they don't get in the game. Right. And that is 100% true.
And also there's personality types that come in with a very perfectionistic view of properties. They want everything perfect and tidy and neat. Well, let me tell you, even the top producing properties can be maximized, can be improved.
Yep.
So we always go into these properties and say, how can we improve it? Even the top producing properties can be improved, in my view. I mean, there's tweaks, there's design ideas, there's adding, like I was mentioning, these giant master closets that are in these properties. You don't need that. How can we capture that space and make another bedroom or add it to another? So there's ways that you can, if your goal is to have it quickly on the market, then you're not going to do that. But most of these properties can be improved. And I like to go in thinking of possibilities.
Absolutely.
So, take the limits off. How can we make this even better, make you more money? How can we extend your bottom line? And that's how I go into every property. And I think that would be some advice I would give to buyers is, just to go look at possibilities. How can we make a small tweak, like small decor without massive changes, just pillows, artwork, and bedding. That's a huge, tweak. You just have to think, how can I make this even better? And just being creative. Things are not always perfect in properties, and we can't be a perfectionist going in and shopping for properties.
Yeah, and they're never going to be perfect. You're always going to, like you said, there is always the best properties all have something that you could do to make them even better.
Yes.
And so if the best ones have that, then every other property below that does.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's the same as when you're saying, interest rates and market and all these different things going on, whether it's an election year or whether there's a war going on, there's always outside things going on that make it feel like the timing is not perfect, right? All that is letting us justify our inaction. And that's what I think is really a key thing for a lot of people that we need to think is, okay, am I getting comfortable sitting on the sidelines, and am I getting really comfortable blaming outside actions for keeping me here? And because interest rates are always going to go up and down. There's always going to be something going on that's not ideal. And there's always opportunities in every single one of those disruptions, market shifts, everything else. And so I would challenge anybody that is waiting for the right time, think back in your entire life and ask yourself, was there ever the right time? Right? Hindsight's always 20/20. You wish you would have bought at certain times. Like we wish we would have bought pre-COVID, but they were like right during COVID when everything was kind of lower and nobody was paying attention to properties, but nobody wanted them because COVID was going on. Right? There was this big, massive pandemic, and people were like, well, that's the reason why I'm not doing it now. Right? There's, if it's right in the middle of an election, they're like, well, I'm going to wait and see if another administration gets in and maybe things will be different. And then I might move forward. If you look back at all the times in your entire life, the timing was never perfect. So don't think now is ever going to be perfect timing, but every single period, there are opportunities and you have to be able to recognize them. And I promise you at the time, they don't look like opportunities. They don't, especially if you don't recognize them. But investors, they get really, really excited about these times when markets shift around and there's some things going on in the outside environment because they're just sitting there and they have less competition, frankly. I mean, at the end of the day, selfishly, as an investor, we do have less competition when these things are going on because everybody's justifying sitting on the sidelines. And there's a lot of investors that are like, okay, I'm good with that.
That's right. That's right. And I think that, if you have that long-term perspective, this is, a lot of people jump in and they want the quick money. But you really need to back up and look at your long-term goals because, you may make short-term money, but really it's a long-term game. You need to think long-term and have a plan and have your goals set before you so that you can look at things with the right mindset, or otherwise you're going to be disappointed. Everything in life is not fast and immediate. So, you can say yes, but if you're expecting X your first year, usually the first year is not your best year.
Yes.
That's typical. So you just have to zoom out a little bit and say, okay, I'm in this for the long haul. I'd like to ramp up as the years progress. And by year 5, maybe I'll be at my best year. So have some realistic expectations, even though you want to be top of the market, I think is another point.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. I would say at a minimum 12 to 18 months before you really start to maximize these assets. Right. And my thought process is always, I want to get that 12 to 18 months started as soon as possible. I want that time clock ticking so that I can reach my year 3, 4, 5,
Right.
where these really become phenomenal assets.
Yes.
And you have to have that long-term mindset, even though they're short-term rentals and we can make money along the way. It's not that you're not going to make money. It's that you're going to have to take some time to build up a customer base, get those repeat customers coming in, making those tweaks to maximize the asset before you really start to see that, that asset become this really great financial asset that we were all hoping for, because it takes time. You got to start the clock ticking at some point, right?
Absolutely. That's it.
Awesome, Susie. Is there anything else as we kind of start wrapping this up, or is there anything else that you would say, okay, if you're out there, you're listening, the piece of advice I would give you is X?
Well, I would just say, take the leap. We can always sit on the sidelines. We can always wait for the world to be in a perfect place, interest rates to be in a perfect place, our lives to be in a perfect place. We're all busy. We all have calendars that are full. You can always say, I'll wait for, the kids to graduate school. But I would just say the best time to invest is now. I mean, I feel like if you are an investor, you are looking for opportunities. That's the mindset you need to come in right now in this climate that we're in. Is there are opportunities in right now. I think every market probably has great opportunities. You just have to find the right real estate professionals on the ground who can hold your hand and help you and help you take the leap.
Yeah, love it. And that goes for any asset class, right? That's great advice across the board. We love vacation rentals. We love short-term rentals. It's what we invest in. It's what you do, and Steve, and you guys are in this game, and as investors. But if you're listening and this isn't the right asset class, pick something. Pick an asset class. I'm such a believer that real estate in general is the best way that the average American can build lifestyle and financial freedom, and really, really secure and build their own wealth, and take the bull by the horns and ultimately be responsible for where we end up in life, instead of just letting, riding the wave of the stock markets and the 401ks and everything else. And so, but at some point you got to move forward. At some point you got to take the leap, and you got to say, okay, I'm going to start doing it. Right. And you can't analyze forever. You can't sit on the sidelines forever. I guess I shouldn't say you can't. You can, but you're not going to get where you want to go by doing so. And so absolutely great advice there, Susie. And so, Susie, we're going to post in those of you that are listening, success leaves clues, right? So we're going to post Susie and Steve's property in Galveston in the show notes, so you guys can check that out. Go check out the amazing design. It's got a beautiful congruent beach design. You can see what Susie is doing to really kind of raise the bar and operate at one of the top properties in that market. We're also going to post, for those of you that are interested in going in and working with a top agent in that market, I'm going to post it's Suzie Austin Properties, right? Susie, you're with KW. And so we'll post that link as well to make sure that you can reach out to Susie if you're looking at the Gulf Coast of Texas and as a possibility for your investment portfolio. And then anywhere else you'd want us to point anybody to reach out to you?
I think that's great. Cell number.
We'll have, and that'll be on your a way to find you on Suzie Austin Properties,
it'll
right?
Be on my website. Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. So we'll have that all in there. And so, guys, we'll wrap up today. This has been a really fun conversation. Susie, I really appreciate you joining us and sharing this information with our listeners. Those of you that are listening, we know how valuable your time is, and we really, really appreciate you spending it with us. At the end of every episode, you guys know I ask you 2 favors. And the number one is, if you got any value out of this, if you know anybody else that would get value out of this, if you'd share the show, that really helps us grow and spread this message. If you have more than 30 seconds, give us a thumbs up and leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening or watching on. And that'll help us spread this message and continue to help people walk into this short-term rental game with their eyes wide open. And then the final thing and most important thing is to go pick one thing you can do today, start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. Share this with other people you think need to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Hey Grace, is there a website? Yes! For more amazing content and expert advice, visit Vodacy.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.